Thompson, and I'm here with the Austin-based author and speaker, Tom Singer, and Houston-based Paul Grabowski, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Bracewell and Giuliani. And they both co-authored a book, The ABCs of Legal Marketing, so we're going to have them answer a few questions about it. All right, so Tom, this is the 5th book you've written in this ABC series, so why shift the focus for this book to the legal space?
Well, it's hard to believe that this is the 5th book in the ABCs series. We started with the ABCs of networking, and then we had the ABCs of speaking, the ABCs of attending a conference, and then the ABCs of entrepreneurs. So everybody says, how come I didn't write the legal book first? I spent 4 years working inside 2 AmLaw 100 law firms and probably should have started my writing and speaking career directly writing to lawyers, but I waited, and so fast forward 7 years later, and that's why we're finally getting around to writing the legal book.
Okay. And Paul, your experience in the legal marketing field, so are most lawyers aware of the importance of marketing and branding themselves in their communities?
It really depends. Some lawyers are born business developers. One of the things that we look at is, in a law firm, we kind of do a 20-60-20. 20% of your lawyers in a law firm are fantastic rainmakers. They understand networking. They're great at developing business. 60% are the ones that, quite honestly, give me job security, because they are the ones who understand the concepts, but they need a little help. They need a little push. Maybe they need a plan. And then 20% are just fantastic lawyers, but they're not going to be the rainmakers of the firm, and that you definitely need them. But really, do they understand legal marketing and business development? That's a tough call for them. So, you know, overall, I would say they have a concept of it, but because law firms really do run like a business, this is something they really need to understand and practice.
And how do marketing and connecting with the community sort of help a lawyer improve his or her business?
Well, like Paul said, a law firm is a business, and sometimes I think even lawyers forget that their firm is just like any other company. It's got a profit and loss, it has overhead, it's got HR issues, and then they have to sell. And a lot of lawyers, like to believe if they just do good work, the clients will find them. But at the end of the day, like any business, they have to market themselves to make sure that they're getting themselves on the short lists. And so the more they get involved in the community, the more their name will bubble up to the top when companies are looking at hiring the right person or the right firm for counsel.
I was just going to add, the one thing lawyers have to understand is they are the product. And in order for them to be the product, it's not a widget, it's not something that's off the shelf. They have to be known. And so getting out in front of people is how they're going to get that name recognition they need.
And what are the most common mistakes you see lawyers making in terms of marketing?
Well, I think the most common mistake that lawyers make, and I preface it by saying I am one, I just didn't cross over necessarily to practice, is there's this inherent understanding that the phone's going to ring, or because they were at the top of their law school class, or that they were on law review, or they work for a great big firm, that business is just going to come. And our industry has changed so dramatically that without marketing and without business development and without a plan, it's really hard to generate business. And as we were talking about earlier, a lot of it is driven by numbers. And we have to be looking at that because we have to be profitable.
And I just want to add that I think a mistake that a lot of lawyers make is, they, like kind of along the lines of what Paul was saying, they think if they do good work, the people will find them. And that might have been true 50 years ago, but there's a lot more competition. When I go in and work with attorneys who are, hungry to grow their practices, never do they say, oh, my competition has all left, they've all died off. Everybody says in this industry, and really every industry, that there's more competition today than there's ever been in the past. So any little thing they can do that will help them stand out, that will help them get on more short lists, is going to help them be more successful.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit about the book. So what are some of the highlights and tips that you provide lawyers in this book?
Well, I'll just start off that it's a compilation of short essays that lawyers can use, so they don't have to sit down and read a whole 450-page book and write a big report on it. It's in bite-sized chunks. And the idea is that they can read about certain little things as they go through the alphabet that are going to help them sort of maybe just spark a few things that they can do differently. So A is for analytics. Are they paying attention to what they're doing with their marketing, and are they keeping track of what the numbers are saying? B is for brand, because at the end of the day, their brand is so important. As we go through the entire alphabet, we're going to talk to them about their reputation. We're going to talk to them about standing out from the crowd and being unique, because at the end of the day, a lawyer is not a lawyer is not a lawyer. Everybody's different, and even ones who compete in the same practice area have different ways that they can do it. In the book, we talk about asking for referrals, and we talk about the fact that they need to be out there networking, because if they're hiding in their cubicle just doing work, their phone's never going to ring.
And Tom, I think you're absolutely right. One of the things that I have come to understand in the time that I've been in law firms and doing this is, while I would love to have every lawyer think marketing, business development first, clients come first. And so marketing and business development is a non-billable component of working in a law firm, yet it is a critical component of working in a law firm. The way the book has been put together allows them the time to sit there for 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, and refresh themselves if they already know something about that topic, or to learn something new that they can really almost immediately put into practice.
And one of the things that some of the other books, like the ABCs of Networking, a lot of law firms have used that book since it came out 7 or 8 years ago. And one of the ways they do it is every time they have a section meeting for the 8 attorneys in their practice group, they will assign someone, one of the associates or maybe one of the partners, they'll assign someone a letter to read the 500-word essay that's in there. And then when they start their meeting, they'll talk about, why does brand matter for us? Or why is being unique important as we're competing? So they can always have a little bite-sized little piece to discuss when they're together as a team.
And Paul, you went to law school, so what is something that you wish you would have known while you were there about this?
To be honest, I wish I would have known the ABCs of legal marketing. I mean, that sounds corny, but law school is a wonderful training ground. But the one thing that's not there is, how do you develop business? We are taught to be excellent practitioners. We are taught that we can practice when we come out in just about any area. But what we're not told is that you need clients who are paying clients in order to sustain a lifestyle of being a lawyer. And whether that be you want to be a solo practitioner or you want to be in one of the AmLaw 100 firms, the mere fact that it's something that is not taught makes it a little bit scary when you get out in the marketplace and realize you've passed the bar, you're hanging your shingle. Oh, great. How do I generate business? And
while
that's
I'm
just not there.
And while I'm not an attorney, I've worked with thousands of them over the years, and it doesn't matter if you're hanging out your own shingle as a single solo practitioner, or if you're working in one of the largest firms in the country. At the end of the day, you are an independent practitioner. Your own practice, the success that you have inside your firm of any size, relies on your ability to generate income and to bring clients into that firm, because without paying clients, your whole practice fizzles up and dies. And a long time ago, I think you could exist, especially in big firms, you could exist by just being a service lawyer, working for others who were the rainmakers. But nowadays, with the economics of law firms, they're looking to see who's bringing in the business. And when the hard decisions have to get made, those who don't know how to develop business often are pushed aside. And so one of the things they should be teaching in law school is that you're really going into sales. Lawyers are sales professionals. They have to be able to bring those people in. And if you're scared of the word sales, it's going to hurt you along the way.
And so the book discusses ways that lawyers can network within their communities to develop contacts and to ultimately expand their business. So what are some simple ways that lawyers can reach out and earn the trust of people who they hope to work with?
The book is about networking in a lot of respects, but one of the things people have to understand, as we talk about in the book, is the two kind of guiding principles. Your contacts are critical, and people do business with a know, like, and trust. And so it's about not only just making those connections, but how to enhance those connections so that at some point you have the trust of people, they like you, and you can actually ask for business. And if someone is going to work in the business field, then they should be out in that community. One of the things that we try and do with our lawyers is tell them, look, you can't be all things to all people, but really if you're trying to network in your community, pick it two ways. One, pick something you know you're going to like, whether it's your church group, your college, your law school, the Young Lawyers Association, whatever that is. But make the commitment to do that, because people don't like what I refer to as pigeon relationships. They fly in, they drop off, and then they're gone again. We need to be thinking long term here, and it's got to be something you're going to enjoy doing, but you also really have to look at that from a business component. Is this someone who could eventually refer me business? Is this someone I could ask for business? Where do they work? How do I develop that relationship? So getting out there is really the first step. The second step is to really take a look at it and say, how can I develop this as a business?
Well, and I'd like to add that getting out there in the community is really just the first step. But a mistake that law firms make all the time is they think paying dues to an association or buying a table at a charity event is going to be enough to generate business. And the problem is that just paying money or having your name on a table, that really doesn't do anything. It's all about what are you doing over the long haul. And what we teach in this book, it could take 3 to 5 years if you really got serious about it before you're going to start seeing the real benefits. It takes a long time. There's an old Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is now. And that's what we're trying to do, is give people just the basic skills that if they just start working on them and start getting engaged in their community, 30 years from now, they're going to be the person who everybody says, wow, they were so lucky. I wish I had a career like theirs.
And I think, Tom, one of the phrases that we used in the book, which I have loved since a friend of mine told it to me, is the chicken makes a contribution at breakfast, the pig's committed. And we really need to think about that you can sit there and contribute, but you have to absolutely be committed. You have to spend the time, and you have to understand how business gets developed.
Okay. And one of the things you touched on earlier was that brand is really important for lawyers. So talk about, what does brand mean for a lawyer?
Well, I always tell people when I'm working with them that the best definition I've ever heard of what is a brand is simply, I heard someone say this 15 years ago, a brand is simply a promise of how you're going to behave. It's that easy.
And from the law firm side of it, I look at the brand on 3 levels. I look at the individual attorney. He has a brand, how we put that out there, or she has a brand. I look at the practice group. What is the industry? How are they perceived within the industries in which they want to get clients? And then the third level that all of these roll up to is, what's the firm brand? How do I fit into that? How do I represent the firm? How does the firm represent me? All of those things are components, because again, if we go back to the fact that the lawyer is selling himself, but they're also selling the practice group and the firm, they have to understand what that brand is, how it's recognized, and how it's marketed to others.
And are there any tips in here that you think are really going to surprise people about things that they are not doing but should be doing?
So one of my favorite tips is be interested in other people and be interesting. If all you do is show up and just talk about your practice, you're not going to be that interesting to other people. And so, it's sort of a two-felled piece of advice. And one side is that you have to take an interest in the people you're talking to. If you're only there thinking that they have a pork chop hanging around their neck and you're a hungry wolf who hasn't eaten and you're just going to pounce on them and go and try and get them as a client, you're going to lose. No one wants to be sold to all the time. So you have to be interested in the other people, find out what's important to them, and then when it's your turn to talk, you have to be interesting. You have to have stuff that you can share with them. You have to know what's going on in the world, because if you don't, no one's going to want to talk to you. So I think that's a tip that's going to surprise some people.
I think one of the tips that's in there, and this is something that Tom has preached previously when I've worked with him, is you never really understand until you take the time to look back at your contacts and really look at who you're connected to. And it's kind of an aha moment that when you really take an inventory, and it doesn't take long. I mean, one of the things I tell lawyers is you should be looking at your contacts at least every 6 months. And the easiest way to do it, if you want to have fun with it, is print out your list of contacts, grab a glass of wine, sit down in the chair, and go through them. But make sure that they're up to date. We take for granted, with our society being so connected socially and electronically, that staying up with your contacts is just absolutely critical. You know, being up with them when good times and in bad. You know, if you're a great football fan and you're playing against their team, great, send them a note if it's their birthday. But you also have to be there in bad times too, because if you are just contacting somebody for the first time, you went to law school with them, and all of a sudden, hey, I got to go generate business. Well, I'm going to call so-and-so that I went to law school with. They know why you're calling, and they're going to realize that you haven't kept up with them. And so just thinking about that, just taking the time just to really take a quick inventory, it really is that aha moment that, geez, I should be doing this, and it's not that hard to do.
And where can we find this book?
So the book will be available on Amazon.com. You can also find a link to it at tomsinger.com. And both Paul and I love to speak at legal events. And so the book will be available at any of the many different types of legal conferences and partner events and different types of conferences that we speak at. We'll always have some of those with us. But I do think that anyone who goes out of their way to get a copy of this book, realize that you're not going to have to read War and Peace. It's a short book, but you're going to walk away with some tips that, if you really think about it, could really change the direction of your entire practice.
All right. Well, thanks, Tom and Paul. Be sure to check out the ABCs of Legal Marketing, and thanks, everyone. All right. I'm going to